Welcome back. United States President Donald Trump has said that they are close to having a trade deal with India. We learned from sources that India has offered substantial market access to U.S. products in almost all sectors, barring agriculture and dairy. Trump sent letters to leaders of 14 nations, starting with staunch U.S. allies, Japan and South Korea, proposing a 25% tariff. This is similar to the high duty proposed by Trump on the 2nd of April. Malaysia, South Africa, Indonesia, Thailand also facing higher tariffs. Trump said, and I quote, "If we want to play ball, this is how we play." End of quote. He also threatened an additional 10% tariff rate on nations aligned with the BRICS bloc. Joining us right now is former Foreign Secretary Vardhan Shringla. Ambassador Shringla, always a pleasure having you here on CNBC TV18. First of all, I would like to ask you to help us understand why Donald Trump delayed the 9 July deadline for imposing reciprocal tariffs for everyone to the 1st of August. Does it show that he's not got that trade victory that he was looking for from some of the key nations?
I think negotiating tariff agreements with such a large number of countries requires a fair amount of time and attention in terms of the backup that you need for each and every negotiation that you conduct. So from that perspective, my sense is that many of the ongoing conversations have not yet reached their conclusion, and many of those that are also, I think, well on their way require a little more time to reach a satisfactory conclusion. So the timeline seems to have been unrealistic, and what I think the extension of deadline indicates is that he wants more time to be able to negotiate satisfactory deals with a large number of countries. Mind you, these are tariff negotiations, and they're different from the trade deal that we are working on. So there is a difference between a trade agreement. Ours is a mutually beneficial bilateral trade agreement, and the ones that you see are essentially, tariff negotiations which determine a sort of average level of tariffs that would be charged by the United States on these countries that are, on the negotiation table.
Right. I would also like to ask you, how does the current tariff policy really help Donald Trump? Yes, he's scoring political victories. Yesterday, he said that they are going to earn at least $300 billion worth of revenues through these tariffs that they have imposed. But is this tariff war going to settle down anytime soon, Ambassador Shringla, or are we going to see this throughout the Trump administration? Or do you expect it to slow down after the midterm elections in the US?
Well, the basis for the entire exercise, Parikshit, is that the US's current trade profile is not sustainable. They have $1 trillion in terms of trade deficit. Much of it is in China, about $450 billion. And I think his focus is on their 10 major partners, including India, where I think he wants a more equitable, trading system, which essentially negates all that the WTO has prescribed. I mean, there are gradations depending on least developed countries, developing countries, and so on and so forth. He, I think, is not accepting this. From Trump's point of view, I will charge you what you charge me in terms of tariffs, and he wants an equitable trading arrangement with major partners, but also countries across the globe. And the second, of course, is that by charging a base price of at least 10%, and in certain cases more, but higher duties, like in the case of China and the 14 countries that you just mentioned, they also earn more revenue, but it also makes the bar higher to access the US market, and so gives a better opportunity for US domestic manufacturers to compete effectively. I think those are the objectives from the American point of view. Whether this settles down is something that we have to see. Trump's best bet would be, I think, to be able to settle as many of these tariff agreements. He's looking, as I said, primarily at between 8 and 10 major partners that he could conclude deals with. And if that happens, then you unilaterally, for the rest, impose a certain level of tariffs, and then allow the let's say playing field to settle. In other words, the market settle. There is less amount of uncertainty in terms of the consumer pricing also in the United States, and it's very important for him politically to be able to reach a conclusion and to tell the public that, the mandate that you brought me in for is being fulfilled. We have managed to, sort of increase our tariffs. We are getting more revenue, but at the same time, I think we are able to provide a better level playing field to our own manufacturing industry. And that is what I think he will end up doing at the earliest possible opportunity.
Right. I would also like to ask you, the current tariff wars that he's having with China, the kind of tariffs he's imposed on Vietnam, Japan, Korea, if these tariffs stay, do you believe India is going to be in a strong position in global supply chains? It could be seen as a better partner in terms of exports?
So I think our approach has been a very well thought through one. We have engaged very early in the game. You'll recall that Prime Minister Modi was in Washington, D.C. in February, 25 days after Trump took office. At that time, both sides declared that they would be looking at doubling trade to $500 billion and concluding a mutually beneficial free trade, bilateral trade agreement as early as possible. And I think we have been negotiating earnestly from that time. Today, at least the first phase of that negotiation, which means that the first part of that bilateral trade agreement is ready to move forward. I'm told that all the discussions have been completed. The entire issue now lies with Washington, mainly the White House, to take a final call on how this should go. But given Trump's recent statements, there is an expectation that he should be able to announce a first trade deal with India shortly. I think both sides have made the necessary adjustments, the necessary compromises that would enable us to have a preferential trade agreement with our largest trading partner. Keep in mind, Parikshit, that we've been concluding trade agreements with many of our major partners, from Australia to the UAE to the UK to EFTA countries. I think the significant omission has been the United States. We have been working on this deal since Trump 1.0. And I think a trade deal that could be announced would certainly send a strong message to the markets, to our industry. And this, I think, will be to the benefit of both the United States and India. We will also benefit greatly by such a deal in many ways.
Right. But Master Shringla, considering that Donald Trump is looking out for US national interest, and he has not honored some of the existing trade agreements that allies like Japan, Australia, European Union have had with the US, do you believe that it's important for India to keep its options open while we show a strong intent to have a good trading partnership with the US? At the same time, we must pursue a very strong export agenda and trade deals with other nations, which is very, very beneficial to us in the long run. And we must speed up that effort.
It goes without saying, Parikshit, and I think that's exactly what we're doing. The fact that we've concluded a deal recently with the UK, which is to be signed, we're looking at a deal with the European Union. I think these are our partners that could offer us alternative markets, alternative options. But let's be clear. I mean, the US is the mother lode. Everything will emanate from that, and the tariff concessions that we give the US will determine the milestones on which we will base our other agreements with everybody else, which will be less than what we would offer to the United States, I imagine, given the respective size of markets. But certainly, I think we should not only work on the deal with the United States, but continue to work with all of our partners to have, as good and as mutually beneficial trading arrangements that we can. This is a very important time in which you have to consolidate your access to global value chains, to reliable, sustainable supply chains with major partners. I think there is an attempt to also renegotiate the deal with ASEAN, right, which has not been in our interest. I think the rules of origin there are weak, and there is quite a lot of scope for diversion of goods into India. We need to address and plug those loopholes as well. But on the whole, I think this looks like, if we can manage it, it will be a very, very good situation for our industry and our economy. And as you mentioned, exports, I think, would be a high priority from that perspective. We would be able to access many more markets more effectively.
All right, Ambassador Shringla, thank you very much for joining us on the program. It's a pleasure talking to you. So let's see what happens in terms of the 7 more tariff letters that Donald Trump will be sending out later tonight. That's all we have time for. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.